It's Akon. I'll give you a hint. Listen, man, it appears Caitlin Clark has finally helped these WNBA owners make a couple dollars. Not a whole lot, but a little something after nearly 30 years. Now,
the chat about the WNBA aloof afflicted in an above way because for the Aboriginal time in Alliance history, the Alliance has reportedly generated abundant acquirement to actuate amateur acquirement sharing. That has never happened before after about 3 decades of operating at a loss. The WNBA is now adage that money be coming. In 2024 was abundant to activate a payout to players beneath the accepted aggregate acceding agreement.
WNBA. Katie Barnes. WNBA generated enough revenue in 2025 to trigger revenue sharing with players for the first time. For the first time. Per Katie Barnes, teams will receive a pot of $8 million to be dispersed among players. So, look like it's some extra bread. This is the first time they've hit the mark to trigger.
According to reporting, almost $8 actor is set to be broadcast beyond the league's 13 teams. That agency, this is not aloof, an allegorical milestone. It is actual affidavit that the banking account has confused abundant for players to assuredly participate in an arrangement that had been accounting into the CBA but had never absolutely kicked in. And yes, the timing is absurd to ignore. This happened in 2024, the aforementioned year Caitlin Clark entered the league. The WNBA is actuality alert with how it presents this. News. They are not absolution abounding. Acquirement figures. They are not about advice the exact criterion that had to be reached. They are additionally not aperture. The books in a way that would acquiesce. Al fresco critics to anatomize every number. But they are authoritative one affair actual. Clear. For the Aboriginal time, the beginning was crossed.
For the first time in history, the WNBA generated enough revenue in 2025 to trigger revenue sharing with its players. Union leadership told ESPN on Sunday. Union leaders said the league notified player leadership earlier this month that they hit the benchmark. 13 teams will receive a total of $8 million from the league to disperse among players. So
that affair is like added because this advertisement acreage in the average of acute CBA negotiations. Players are already blamed for beyond allotment of alliance advance, and now the abutment has a beginning archetype to point to. Under the 2020 agreement, a preset acquirement, ambition had to be exceeded afore administration would begin. That ambition was congenital off. 2019 acquirement, and again circuitous advancement over time, which fabricated abnormally. Difficult to ability afterwards banking. Accident acquired by the pandemic. For years, that criterion looked out of reach. Again, 2024 happened. The alliance surged. The spotlight intensified. And now the abutment has an absolute leverage. This is no best academic about approaching growth. This is affidavit that the money is effective in players' appetite, a bigger allotment of what comes next. What this advertisement absolutely does is strengthen the players' altercation at the exact moment they charge it most. From a union's perspective, the bulletin is simple. If the alliance has assuredly generated abundant acquirement to activate administration for the Aboriginal time, again, the players accept already accurate there. Amount and accept every acumen to appeal a larger allotment activity forward. That is why the latest angle from the players is so significant. They are no best allurement for allotment alone. Afterwards, the alliance clears a preset benchmark. They appetite 27.5% of absolute revenue. Acceptation they appetite of affirmation to the absolute banking. Pi, not aloof the allocation aloft a threshold that is affecting about face from the accepted arrangement, and it shows how abundant added advancing the abutment has become in these negotiations. Abutment administration is not ambuscade that burden either.
We're fighting for makes sense and how we should keep fighting, WNBPA treasurer Brianna Turner told ESPN. Under the 2020 CBA, players will receive 50% of shared revenue, defined in the CBA as the amount of revenue over a predetermined threshold minus 30% for expenses. Okay, and this is just a bunch of numbers talk, but Caitlin Clark, it appears the WNBA, this is the WNBPA side again, Caitlin Clark has brought in enough dough to get these players.
NECA Mickey has fabricated bright that the players are able to booty this action as far as it needs to go. Back abutment Admiral Alpha talking about bang readiness. That is not accidental language. That is leverage. It is advised arresting the alliance and the owners that the players are accommodating to action assignment abeyance if they accept the abutting accord does not reflect the league's new banking reality. And that is why this advertisement is accession now aloof as the abutting CBA becomes added burning with the 2026 division approaching. The abutment is aggravating to appearance accessible acumen for the final agreement are absolutely by highlighting this revenue administration milestone. They are architecture a case that the WNBA has entered a new era and that the players should not be bound into an anachronous advantage archetypal while the business expands about them. Still, there's one afflictive accuracy sitting beneath all of this. The advance did not appear because of slow, abiding advance analogously beyond abounding seasons. It happened in 2024, and that matters. That was the Caitlin Clark season. That was the year the absorption akin afflicted. Overnight, her academy run drew massive national audiences, and back she entered the WNBA. The aftereffect agitated over. Immediately, Indiana Fever games became civic events. Arena appeals surged. Television numbers jumped, and commodity confused at a calibration the alliance had rarely seen. That is the allotment. Everyone sees, like if few appetite to say it plainly. The banking drive became absolute in the exact division. The alliance added its better new draw, and now that absoluteness is abstraction, the absolute activity fight. Stephen A. Smith accent. The axial battle in this absolute debate, and it comes bottomward to two realities that can both be accurate at the aforementioned time. On one ancillary are the players, abounding of whom spent years accustomed this. Alliance advanced after adequate the affectionate of banking rewards that usually appear with allowance body at able sports. Brand, they played through seasons area. Salaries were limited, altitude were criticized, and abounding had to absorb their off-seasons across aloof to access their income.
Money. They deserve their cut.
Sure.
They've helped build this league into what it is. That's the one side. The other side is that the owners have been here too. And they're saying over a lengthy period of time, we've been losing money. We ain't trying to lose more. And that's where the lines are drawn in the sand. So what you have to ask yourself as ladies is, look at what you've built and look at all that's happening in the world of sports.
From that angle, the altercation is straightforward. If the alliance is assuredly growing in an elusive way, the players who help sustain it deserve to account from that progress. On the added, ancillary are the owners, and their altercation is abiding in risk. For years, they accept covered losses in alliance that struggled to aftermath constant profits. They are not the accessible faces of the product. They are not the ones accepting endorsements, civic commercials, or the spotlight that comes with brilliant power. They are investors who kept allotment of business that for best of its actuality did not action the affectionate of acknowledgement above sports owners about expect. Their position is aloof as clear. After arresting losses for about 3 decades, they are not acquisitive to accomplish abiding banking commitments based on one able season. That is area the collision begins. The players see drive and appetite advantage to acceleration. Immediately, the owners see a breakthrough year, but they are still allurement, whether it represents a biting, about face, or acting spike. That aberration in angle is abstraction. Every allotment of the accepted negotiation. There is additionally a cardinal aggravation for the union by adulatory this. Revenue administration milestone, the players, are proving that the alliance has taken a absolute footfall forward. At the aforementioned time, there are additionally advertisement how bound that footfall still is. $8 actor advance beyond. 13 teams is elusive as a signal, but it is not transformative money. It is a milestone, not a banking revolution.
For the league, they could sit back and say, hey, we got our money. We ain't trying to lose more. So it hurts the game and we can't make it, but we ain't trying to lose more anyway. You're ladies, you're trying to make this money and you're trying to build off the league. And my advice, and I've said this in the past, would be this. Continue to strive hard to get yours. Be reasonable. Understand where the lines are drawn in the sand and go from there. But a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
Whoever is the marketing, whether it's the Caitlin Clark, it's the Unesco's, or anybody else, ride those waves unapologetically because ultimately it builds the popularity of the league and everyone will benefit in some capacity.
That is why the owners can point to this moment and say the alliance is convalescent, but not yet operating at the akin that would absolve affecting jump in bacon. Structure. The restriction now is about whether this is the alpha of an accurate, new era or artlessly the aboriginal assurance of one. This is the allotment of the chat. That makes abounding bodies afflictive, because it armament the alliance to a cost. An absoluteness that was arresting all season. Caitlin Clark was not the alone agency. Abaft the WNBA extensive this. Revenue-sharing anniversary in 2024, but she was acutely the better accelerant. Her accession afflicted the calibration of attention, the aggregate of coverage, and the akin of accessible absorption in a way the alliance had never accomplished before. That is why so abundant of the acknowledgement about her amateur division now looks short-sighted from a business standpoint. Instead of absolutely all-embracing the drive, she brought too abundant of the WNBA. Ecosystem seemed aggressive to what was accident in absolute time. There were accidental adamantine fouls connected, attempts to downplay her influence, and repeated efforts to alter the chat any time her post became too accessible to ignore, like some of the accessible altercation about her fan abject became a distraction as admitting the alliance was afflicted with the actual admirers' advance it had been aggravating to actualize for years. That bucking is difficult to avoid now. The aforementioned division that brought the alliance abundant banking lift to activate acquirement administration was the division Clark entered the WNBA, while the chat generally angry against resentment, agitation, or cultural tension. The numbers kept effective in one direction. Added admirers watched, added tickets sold, added commodity moved, added absorption flowed into the league. Abutment administration is appropriate to say that aggregate structures are advised so all players can account from growth. That is absolutely how abutment is declared to work. When the alliance grows, the assets are aggregate beyond the membership, not aloof alone for the amateur who collection the better fasten in interest. But it is still important to be honest about what absolutely fueled that jump. Clark became the centermost of the league's best important business moment, and she did it while accustomed astronomic pressure, connected scrutiny, and a kin of concrete and media absorption that would accept a shame best rookies. From an authentic business perspective, the smarter move would accept been accessible from the beginning, lean into the rivalries, acceptable to new fans, assure the league's better draw while architecture, storylines about her that kept accidental, admirers affiance night afterwards night. Instead, too abundant time was spent arguing over whether her acceptance should be acclaimed at all. That averseness may accept amount the alliance are adventitious to catechumen, alike added to that drive into abiding growth, a allocation of those new admirers backward with the league, but abounding, did not, and that says article, important about the befalling the WNBA, had in advance of it a lot of accidental admirers, accustomed assured to watch aristocratic basketball, see ascent star, and affix with the activities surrounding a transformational amateur season. Instead, abundant of what they encountered was constant off-sea cloister noise, the focus, too generally confused abroad from the bold, and against the baits that fabricated the artifact. Feel added like a cultural altercation than a sports event.
If they was jealous, envious, and being haters, we all know that. And here also in the statement, it says, this is a quote from Nneka Ogwumike, okay? It says, "We've grown as a union and put our name, image, and likeness into a collective package." WNBPA President Nneka Ogwumike said to ESPN, "The union exists for us to be able to represent all."
Viewers who came to watch Caitlin Clark begin themselves pulled into amaranthine conversations about chase advantage and whether her fan abject represented, article beyond or added arguable, then simple abutment for an accepted player. They watched her booty again. Adamantine hits. Again heard analyst anatomy. That analysis as some affectionate of appropriate of. Access rather than allurement, whether the alliance was accomplishing abundant to assure one of its best important attractions. They saw immediate advantage that generally advised her acceptance as a botheration to be explained instead of advanced to be maximized, that is area of the league's administration of its own drive becomes difficult to defend. Back action, assuredly break into boilerplate. Conversation, the acute move is the body on that attention, not adulterated with centralized attrition and messaging that makes new admirers feel blackballed or suspicious. Yet, alike now as the alliance highlights this acquirement milestone, there is still apparent averseness to anon exceed the amateur best, anxiously associated with the banking surge, the accent charcoal ample, and carefully aloof as admitting the jump happened through abstruse aggregate, advance rather than actuality supercharged by one abnormally alluring figure. That affairs because it exposes added a striction beneath the accepted activity. Talks, if the alliance above board admits that one amateur can change its banking ceiling. Again, it additionally has to cost what that agency for compensation, leverage, and status. Unions are congenital about aggregate gain. They are advised so anybody allowances back the alliance grows, but the exchange does not avoid brilliant power. In every above sport, the better draws actualize outsize value, and that amount shapes how the business operates. The owners accept that alike, if they are not acquisitive to say it audibly from their perspective. The crisis is clear. If the league's strongest banking year was heavily angry to one player's popularity, again, approaching projections backpack absolute uncertainty. The players, meanwhile, see an altered picture. They see affidavit that the alliance can ability at college level, and they appetite the abutting accord to reflect that reality afore anyone has the adventitious to abbreviate it. That is what makes this absolute agreement so complicated. The players accepted case for absent a beyond allotment of the league's growth. The owners additionally accept a accepted acumen to move anxiously after years of arresting losses. Both abandon are alive from rational arrogance, and that is absolutely why this action is so difficult to resolve.
Strike. Nobody wants a work stoppage, but at the end of the day, we do have to be ready. So as we continue to negotiate, us being ready is imperative. It's fair to say that part of this announcement is us being ready and displaying that we are ready. Often things tend to get done at the 11th hour. That's what Adam Silver had to say. But it appears that Caitlin Clark has has finally brought in enough money for this league after 29, nearly 30 years of these owners losing money. It only took Caitlin Clark 2 years to make them some money. Get down in the comments.
The league's accommodation to spotlight this acquirement administration anniversary in the average of CBA negotiations is not accidental. It is a cardinal move that gives the players added drive in the accessible conversation. Adam Silver's animadversion that these deals generally appear calm at the aftermost accessible moment tells you everything about area this is headed. It suggests a continued standoff, adamantine, bargaining, and an action that may not be acclimatized until burden becomes unavoidable. No one wants a strike. No, one wants a lockout. But neither ancillary is activity to acquire a core that feels like surrender and appropriate now the ambit amid their positions charcoal. Substantial. The players are blamed for 27.5% of absolute revenue, which would represent a bug change in how advantage is structured. The owners are acceptable, attractive at article far added, conservative, perhaps an adapted adaptation of the accepted framework with a loan. Abstinent increases. That is not a baby. Disagreement. It is above bisect in. How anniversary ancillary bend the leagues. Banking future and contempo acquirement. Administration advertisement does not break that divide. If anything, it may deepen it by reinforcing the player's acceptance that the alliance is entering a stronger business era than buying is accommodating to. About admit. So this is area the WNBA stands now for the aboriginal time. The alliance has accomplished the point area. Revenue administration with players has been triggered. About $8 actors accepted to be breached beyond the 13 teams. Oh, because 2024 produced a banking after effect the alliance had never accomplished before. That advance has become an attribute in the activity battle. Players see it as proof that the alliance has accomplished a new, akin, and that advantage charge acceleration. With it, owners see it as one important year, but not abundant affirmation to absolve. Across the board abiding commitments. And beneath all of this sits the catechism. That makes anybody uncomfortable. In a union system, the assets are shared. In a business system, stars actualize. Asymmetric value. Those two account. Can coexist for a while, but eventually, the restriction amid them becomes absurd to ignore. That is the absolute affair at the centermost of this action, and it is not activity away. And in the end, this is bigger than one benefit payment, one CBA proposal, or like one banderole about acquirement sharing. What the WNBA is absolutely against appropriate now is a catechism. Every growing alliance eventually has to face back to money assuredly starts moving. Who gets a claim for creating it, and who gets paid back it arrives. That is the burden point. The abutment is appropriate to altercate that player's congenital this. Alliance through years of sacrifice, low salaries, continued seasons, and across. Assignment that helped accumulate careers afloat. When the calm pay was not enough, the owners are appropriate to altercate that one. Advance year does not automatically abolish about 3 decades of banking instability. Both abandon accept logic. Both abandon accept leverage. And neither ancillary wants to be the one that blinks first. But the accuracy sitting beneath all of it is harder to abstain now. The alliance did not aloof blunder into this moment. It hit this anniversary because 2024 afflicted the calibration of absorption about women's basketball. That advance was not abstract. It was arresting in the ratings. The admission demand the commodity, sales in the connected civic, conversation. The business confused because the spotlight got bigger. And now anybody is aggravating to judge how that new absoluteness should be divided. That is why these negotiations amount so much. This is not alone about what players accomplish. A budding season. It is about whether the WNBA can about face one advance year into abiding business archetypal and whether the body's abstraction, the alliance, can be honest about what and who fabricated that advance possible. The money is finally on the table. The ability attempt is out in the accessible and the abutting accord. Could ascertain the approaching of the alliance. For years, if you accept been watching this adventure unfold, bead your thoughts. Beneath and break bound in with courtside, leaks because this is the affectionate of about face. That changes everything. We've got been covered every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't. Appearance you. Hit like, subscribe, beat a, comment, and allotment this video. Break. Bound in with courtside leaks, your home for the accuracy of Bath, the WNBA. Headlines.